This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, December 18th, 2023. Case file number 1384, written by Hartagon. Me and my dad saw a flying car. When I was like 8 or 9, my dad was driving me to a doctor's appointment. It was like 8 in the morning and on a highway, so still a bit of traffic from people on their morning commutes to work downtown. Traffic wasn't exactly bumper to bumper and at a crawl, but it was still rather packed and about half the speed limit or less. As we were going along, I glanced over at the rearview mirror. It was in a truck with those extra wide mirrors with multiple angles, so I could see behind us despite being in the passenger seat. About 3 or 4 cars back, I saw a car literally leave the ground and do a front flip, landing upside down. My dad was a firefighter, so he pulled over to see if he could help in some way. He couldn't. But neither of us saw what caused the accident, and I still have no idea. It wasn't the guy speeding into the back of the car or in front of him, or the car behind him speeding into him. There simply wasn't enough room for anyone to be speeding. Plus, neither the car in front of him or behind him were involved in the accident as far as I can tell. No one else stopped, traffic in front of him kept going, and traffic behind him went around and kept going. I don't see how he could have hit someone or have been hit hard enough to do a literal front flip and not have the accident heavily damage the other car as well. The driver of the car was pretty banged up and unconscious, so it's not like my dad could inquire as to what happened. He couldn't even help at all really, since it wouldn't be safe to move him. We were there and my dad just basically kept an eye on him until the fire department and police arrived. No idea if my dad ever got any updates on what happened or how the driver turned out. And if he did, he never told me. But even now, I can't think of any way for that accident to have occurred in the way it occurred. Case file number 1385, written by Space and Time 12, The Aliens of Fire. So this happened a few years ago. It was probably like 2015, 2016. I don't usually share what I saw because I know people will just dismiss me. I've told a few people, but there weren't any other witnesses and I didn't have a camera capable of taking a picture in the dark. I had a basic phone with a slide-out keyboard. Anyway, it was approximately between 2200 and 0000 hours, and I was at the little dirt parking lot for a nature preserve that's only about a mile or so away from where I live. So I go down there to smoke, and I'm sitting on the tailgate of my pickup truck, loading up. Important note, I was not intoxicated when I witnessed this. When I saw a flying object I was not able to identify. There were some fluffy clouds, and this object can be best described as a campfire in the sky. It was orange, yellow, and red, and continuously moving in the way a fire moves when burning. That fire emoji is pretty close to what its general shape was. So this object descended through the clouds, and I could see it illuminate the cloud as it passed through. It moved very slowly, and stopped on a dime after it came through the bottom of the cloud. At this point, it's kinda just hovering in one spot below the clouds. I tried to take a picture, but my camera couldn't detect its light as it was too far away. But I got very excited and I was thinking, holy crap, this is my chance to make contact with the aliens. I need to try to signal it and try to get it to come closer. Maybe these aliens will be down to smoke with me. The object seemed aware that I was watching it, because it just hung in the sky, not really moving. After assessing the situation, my best option to signal to it was to hold my phone up facing the object and press a button to activate the screen. So that's what I did, and the light came on my phone. And as soon as I did, the object flew away faster than anything humans have, and in a direction that human aircraft cannot fly. It moved in a J shape, up through the clouds. I'm assuming back into space. It was instant acceleration. Nothing that humans have can move like that. People inside would be crushed by 100 Gs of force. I have encountered a few other people in my area that have seen a similar object that they can only describe as like a campfire in the sky, with movement capabilities unlike anything on Earth. Bonus file written by Anonymous, Casino Rama's Dark Secret. Long story short, in late summer 2008, I was in the bushes outside the back doors to Casino Rama, lying on the ground well concealed within the bushes, waiting to die. I had taken one last flyer on gambling and lost everything, then thrown away my wallet and stretched out on the ground there in the bush. I ended up lying there for 5 hours before I got hauled off to the hospital. At some point during those 5 hours, some kind of rodent crossed my leg. It was walking strangely, jerkily, very tense in its movements, and staring around like it was terrified. But it treated my body like part of the ground and didn't seem to be aware that it was walking over top of another living being. I've never seen this type of rodent before or since, and I don't know what species it is. Given that the casino is on native reservation land, it could have been some curious native spirit having a look-see at this suicidal maniac lying in its bushes. I've never been back, but I've thought about passing through that reservation just to see if the local spirits show any sign of recognizing me. Case file number 1386, written by Secret Combs 865. The strange temporal episode on the San Mateo Bridge. About 10 years back, while I was living in San Francisco, me and my roommate drove to Hayward to go watch a movie with a friend of ours who lived in Hayward. To get to Hayward from San Francisco, you have to cross the San Mateo Bridge. I have driven that bridge what feels like 1,000,000 times, so I am super familiar with how long it takes to get across it. It was a later movie, and we didn't get out till a few minutes before midnight. We said our goodbyes and started driving back home to the city. We're on the San Mateo Bridge, and my roommate was driving. It was late, and I was just enjoying the radio while we drove, super content and relaxed. I then suddenly had this deep feeling that we'd been driving for a very long time. Too long. Like it felt like we'd been driving for hours. There weren't very many cars on the bridge at that hour either, and I surveyed my surroundings. The bridge just stretched on before us. Suddenly, my roommate spoke up and asked me if I felt like we'd been driving for way too long on the bridge, and my stomach sank. We turned off the radio, and I swear to you, the clock said 1:20 a.m. We had somehow been driving on that bridge for over an hour. We freaked out and became hyper-vigilant. I told my roommate who was driving to just stay calm and that I'm sure we'd be off the bridge soon. And sure enough, the hill on the bridge came up that you drove over to get off the bridge and into the Foster City. We sped home to our townhome at like 90 miles per hour after we'd gotten off the bridge. That bridge does not take over an hour to cross. I truly feel like we'd gotten stuck in some time loop on that bridge crossing the bay, and when we finally realized what was happening, we snapped out of it. And no, we did not drink any alcohol or take any drugs. Has this happened to anyone else? Maybe even on the same bridge? Case file number 1387, written by Sup, Mr. AJ, when a mysterious photographer interrupts the drive. I was traveling from Cambridge towards Boston, towards R93, driving on Soldiers Field, I believe. I was in a passenger in the car, sitting shotgun, as my husband drove. It was a beautiful summer day, windows down, enjoying the ride. We were on a section of road where we had 2 lanes going in the same direction. There was a black SUV in front of us, which started to travel under the speed limit. I was hoping my husband would pass them, but he's often more patient than I am. Up ahead of us, there is a stoplight. The black SUV slows down even more before coming to a complete stop, quite a ways before reaching the stoplight, which is still displaying a green light. My husband stops behind them. A middle-aged Asian woman gets out of the back of the SUV, from behind the driver, and slowly walks around to my side of the car. She is extremely well dressed and has large, dark sunglasses on. She comes up to me, having my window down, and is wearing a camera around her neck. She takes her camera and a step back and takes a photo or two of me. She then walks back to her car, never saying a single word. I had internally become petrified for some reason when she picked up the camera and took a picture. My husband did nothing. The SUV remained sitting. My husband finally drove around the car and passed it. The light was still green. We were in a stupefied shock. I did not comprehend why my husband didn't drive off and instead just sat there, allowing her to do this. There was nothing special about our car or us or me. It was such a baffling, odd occurrence. We never really tell people because we have no explanation and it sounds weird and kind of anticlimactic. Case file number 1388, written by 2Roads427, The Synchronized Family Dinner Glitch. My family just experienced the glitch all together at dinner this evening. We were eating salmon, potatoes, and a bunch of other veggies. Rule is, finish what is on your plate before you ask for more. Dad reminded the youngest who was asking for more salmon. She still has yellow zucchini and potatoes left. The youngest child had been resisting veggies lately. She didn't want the yellow zucchini, so I traded her for some broccolini. She was very happy and ate it all. Then proceeded to finish her potatoes. I saw very clearly that her plate was empty, so I gave her more salmon, took the initial bones out, and Dad checked the rest for any other bones. All of a sudden, I see more potatoes and yellow zuck on her plate. I thought maybe Dad put some on. Strange, because I knew she was getting full already and thought the salmon would be her last serving. Well, I was wrong, and she asked again for more salmon after finishing that second serving. Dad told her again she needs to finish what is on her plate. I suggested that since this was her second serving of potatoes and zuck, she did not need to finish that, especially because she did not serve it to herself. Dad then said that it was the original potatoes and zuck from the first serving. He recalled that when I gave her the second salmon, those were still on her plate. We had a whole discussion about it and agreed we must have been in different dimensions. Youngest doesn't recall how those got on her plate, but she does know she cleared her plate the first time. The oldest recalled seeing the plate empty too, then said it must have been one of her new ghost friends who gives people things they don't want or need. I don't know how to explain what happened, but I do know it gets annoying because we can't agree and get frustrated since we are seeing things differently. We have been seeing an increase in glitches lately too. File number 1389, written by There Be Sheilas. Why does my dad sit alone in his car every night? I moved out of home not long after graduating high school, but while I was still living with my parents, I'd often witness my dad leaving the house to sit in his car for an hour or so, only to come back inside and continue on like normal. It would only happen at night, and it never seemed strange as my dad's always been a car guy, and I just summed it up to a man loving his car. Recently, after visiting for dinner, I asked my mom if she knew why my dad did this, and she had no idea what I was talking about. They've been married for 10 years, so it seems strange she'd never picked up on it, but my sister hadn't known about it either. He never drove anywhere when he did this, he just sat there. I didn't want to question my dad about it. For whatever reason, the idea made me uneasy. My father and I have a very close relationship outside of this mystery, but it's always made me feel rather strange thinking about it. Case file number 1390, written by Malatov, The Intruder's Riddle. Myself and some coworkers got transferred to another facility for a long-term contract, 2 years. The new facility was about 8 hours away, so instead of staying in a hotel, 4 of us rented an apartment. One night, I was there by myself and got up to go to the bathroom. I hear someone in the kitchen and look down the hallway to see a backpack on the couch. I figured it was one of my coworkers getting off early and used the bathroom and went back to bed. A couple days later, I saw my coworkers and asked them about it. They denied it and said they were on an overnight job about 3 hours away. Then I remembered the deadbolt on the door was still locked the next morning. It only unlocked from the inside. The only way in or out of the apartment was the front door, or a crawl space that had the door nailed shut. The scariest part was not knowing how someone got in or out. I've dealt with home intruders before, so it's nothing new for me. It just freaked me out that someone could come and go as they please. Case file number 1391, written by Biomaster09. The Sinister Swings. Back when I was in college, I, a 250-pound guy, fairly muscly, was at my friend's house, and she lived about 2 blocks from an elementary school with a really nice park and playground attached. Outside of school hours, no one went there, so we used to go there all the time and just hang out. Day, night, crack of dawn, whenever. It was always fun to just get away. One night, around midnight, we had just eaten at IHOP and decided to hang out on the swings. For some reason, it seemed darker than normal that night, and just weird. We were sitting on the swings and not talking much. All of a sudden, I had this insane feeling of fear and just wrongness come over me. I don't know how to explain it, but the entire park just felt wrong. Like my mind and body just started screaming at me to get the hell away from the park right at that exact instant, or else. About that time, she turned to me and said, You want to get out of here? I said yes, and we started walking towards the car. We made it maybe 5 feet, and we both, at the exact same time, started running as fast as we could to the car, jumped in and drove off as fast as we could. Turned out she had that exact same pervasive feeling of just wrongness about the place. To this day, I have no idea why we both felt that sudden, intense fear and uneasiness about a place we had been to hundreds of times. To this day, neither one of us has gone back to that park. Case file number 1392, written by Mother Bike, From the Dance Floor to the Crash Site. I was taking dance lessons about 20 minutes away from my house and was getting a ride home from my mom one night after lessons. We stopped at a red light, and I happened to notice a car coming up to the T-shaped intersection rather erratically. They had the green, and I said to my mom, "They better slow down." No sooner than the phrase left my mouth, crash! The car had just missed a transformer, but hit the streetlight next to it. I jumped out of the car, as did 5 kids in a car that was right next to the light the first car had hit. Me and 5 guys are trying to get the guy to come out too, but then me and another one of the guys sees the passenger coming to speak frantically in some Russian or European language. The 2 of us go over to her side of the car, ask her if she's okay, and in some broken English, she says she is. However, she's also getting herself out of the car. We try to get her to stay put, but now the guy is coming too. We check on him while my mom is on the phone with the police in the background. The woman starts heading off down towards a gravel road further away from the crash site. A few of us follow her to make sure she's okay. She probably had a concussion at least. There's some townhouse-style apartments nearby, and we follow to what is presumably her house. All of us are just confused as a little voice calls to her after she knocks on the door. In her native language, I assume, she told the child to open the door. She then looked at us standing about 5 feet away with what we can now see in the faint porch light is a broken left arm and said, "Please go, I'm fine." The child lets the mom in, and we head back to see the guy getting loaded onto a stretcher, but I heard he was a bit combative before we got back. I still to this day have no idea what all that was about, but I have a strange feeling she went home to hide something that she shouldn't have had in the car with her. Hope she's okay. Case file number 1393, written by Mobies 1985, The Night Aliens Invaded Our Hawaiian Retreat. In 2009, I went to a destination wedding in Hawaii. For the purpose of the story ahead, I was sober for 6 months at this time. I never did any hallucinogens. We stayed on Oahu on the North Shore, actually very close to the Banzai pipeline, and we had this really cool home rented that was a small airplane hangar converted into a house with all the amenities. We had an unobstructed view of the Hawaiian waters from the porch. On the first night, my dad, his girlfriend, and I watched the different colors of the sky as day turned into dusk. We hung out and had some food. They had a couple beers and I had my sodas. While it was still light out, I decided I was tired from traveling and went in to watch some TV. Not longer than 5 minutes pass and my dad and his girlfriend call for me to come back out to the rear porch. I walk out of the sliding glass door and see them standing and pointing towards the ocean. There was a small fishing boat out in the water, close enough to see what it was, but far enough to not really tell how big it was. It was still somewhat light out, and the sun had not completely gone down. I don't really remember what time it was. As I looked towards the boat, what we all saw, was what looked like a red flare holding steady in the sky. It was about as bright and the same color as a red stoplight, but slightly brighter. No pulsing, no movement, just stuck in the sky. It was too far and too still to be a flare, but we figured it was something from the boat. Then all of a sudden, the intensity of the red light grew, and from the light came 2 more lights in the shape of a triangle. It looked like the other 2 red lights morphed and rotated out from the first, and was now 3. Our jaws hit the floor. Again, this was still pretty far out on the coast, but slightly easy enough to see with the naked eye. Luckily enough, there were a pair of binoculars inside that I grabbed as I darted into and back out of the house. As I pulled the binoculars up to my face, the object disappeared right before my eyes. I thought to myself, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Then 2 seconds later, boom! It reappeared behind a cloud cover to our right, towards the bonsai pipeline. It absolutely lit the cloud up, so much so that it moved into now emitting a pulsing red light. I'm getting chills just thinking about it now. That same red color, as before, bloomed into the cloud and lit up the sky. I have never seen anything move like that in my life. The weirdest part was that there was no sound. 0. Anything that I know of that moves like that, from one place to another in our atmosphere, breaks the sound barrier, or you can at least hear the engines or propellers. I could hear the sound of the waves from the North Shore hitting the beach. Then it did it again. It disappeared again and moved to the cloud in front of us. This time it was more visible. I used the binocular to see what it was, and this part will be ingrained in my memory forever. A black, triangle-shaped object with one red glowing light on each corner of the craft. It sounds nuts, but we all saw this thing. What happened next was that it used the cloud cover to move away from us, heading out towards the ocean. I handed the binoculars to my dad so he could get a glimpse, and when he handed them back to me, I looked through them again to see that miles away I could still see the black triangle, this time with no red lights, essentially just leaving. But now there were more of them. I counted 5 of them. And they were, well, just leaving. As in heading up at an angle that I've never seen any craft move at a speed that should have generated some sort of sound, especially with 5 of them now, leaving as if they were departing our atmosphere. And then they were gone. I dropped the binoculars. We were absolutely stunned. This whole encounter took place in less than 90 seconds. I know that there is a military base on the island and wonder if it was some sort of test aircraft. To this day, I still don't know what we saw. Sometimes we bring it up to each other, but never really tell anyone else about it. Who would believe it? This is still, by far, the most unexplainable thing that has ever happened to me. Bonus file, written by Scorch215, The Black Mass That Haunted Our Road. This was back in high school. Live in a rural area where deer and elk are common. Was coming home from a school game night where we got to play video games on the school's TV with a friend who was driving. Was going to spend the night at his place due to it being around 2 a.m. We came around a corner and couldn't see the lines of the road ahead of us as a black mass was blocking it. Yes, we were speeding, so when my friend slammed on his brakes, we hit the mass. There was no feeling of impact. Thinking we hit a deer or elk, we backed up a bit to see. After getting well past where we saw the mass, there was nothing anywhere. We got out with some flashlights and checked the sides of the roads. Nothing. We realized there was no impact or sound at that point, and the fact the mass blocked an entire 2-lane road with ease was frankly spooky. We booked it back to his truck, got in and nearly peeled out of there, locking every door in its place and basically not separating for several hours in case something else happened. File number 1394, written by Striped Macaroon, The Night I Defied Death on Sunset Boulevard. My heart is already beating fast telling the story. Only those closest to me know that this happened until now. When I was 25 years old, I was driving home from work one night. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. I was driving on Sunset Boulevard, heading west towards my apartment in Brentwood. For those that are not familiar with the area, there is an expanse of sunset near UCLA that is very curvy. It is 2 lanes on either side with no shoulder. It was 8:30 on a Saturday night, so there was some traffic. I was driving along and all of a sudden, about 50 feet in front of me, I saw a car, but I was looking at the passenger door. A car had spun out of control and was perpendicular in my lane. I didn't have time to stop. I looked to my right and saw there was a car next to me, so I had nowhere to go. I instinctively turned my car all the way to the right anyway. Once I had cleared the first car, I spun it all the way to the left, still trying to avoid the second car. While all of this was happening, I remembered a time with my mom at Disney World when I was 3. This is not a memory I have ever had. I vaguely remember parts of that trip, but this memory was not one of them. I realized then that my life was flashing before me, and I was going to die. I had never been so sure of anything. Every part of me knew I was about to die. I started screaming. To this day, I don't know if I vocalized anything or if it was all in my head. I yelled, "No, this isn't fair, I'm not done yet." All the while swerving all over Sunset Boulevard. I suddenly stopped my car and I was now perpendicular in the opposing lane of traffic. I looked around and there was not a single car anywhere. It was like everything had been wiped clean. I put my car in reverse and proceeded home. I did not see a single car the rest of the way. I was only 5 minutes away from home at that point, but Sunset Boulevard on a Saturday night was completely empty. I got to my apartment and parked on the street. I didn't see one person. While walking to my apartment, I came to the conclusion that I had died, and because I said no, I was stuck in some limbo. I had never wanted my roommate to be home so badly. Unfortunately, she wasn't. I called one of my best friends and said, "I need to ask you some questions. Please just answer me and I will explain after." I asked her my name, my age, what city we lived in, and the date. Obviously, she was very alarmed. I explained that I thought I was dead and I wasn't sure I was really on the phone with her. She tried to convince me that I was alive and that everything was okay. But there was no way mathematically to escape it. There was nowhere for the car on the right to go. This moment has haunted me my whole life. There have been times when I have questioned my existence. I've wondered if my life since has been a very detailed death trip and I'm actually lying on Sunset Boulevard bleeding out. After many years of meditation, spiritual practice, and belief in quantum physics, I wonder what life I jumped into. Case file number 1395, written by Anonymous. When Josh Defied Time and Space. We were in year 8, 12 to 13, and messing around in school on our lunch break. My friends and I decided we should play tag. Me, a few others, and Josh, the central point of this story. I am it, and I give them a 5-second head start. Josh ran into our area. Our school had separate areas for years 7 and 8s, mostly so we didn't have any excuse to be late for classes. Our section, year 8s, was on ground level. It only had one entrance and exit point on the inside. This is where things get strange. To get from the year 8 home base, you had to either use the indoor entrance or exit outside, and walk maybe 3 minutes outside, up some stairs, and cross a bridge. Josh, the slowest person in our group, managed to get from the indoor entrance to the year 8 home base all the way to the indoor bridge exit of the year 7 within the 5-second countdown. There were no storage closets or stairways between the two, no lift, elevator, nothing. When I saw him, he genuinely had no clue as to how he'd gotten there so fast. Me at the time, being a stupid 13-year-old, didn't pay much attention to this until we all saw each other recently, over 6 years later, and he brought it up. He still swears on his life that he does not know what happened, and that it freaked him out for years. Case file number 1396, written by Snowy556, The Cemetary, 15 years later. When I was younger, I would have dreams from time to time when I would visit my favorite uncle, who would be building a castle. Every time I had the dreams, the castle would be more and more built, and ended up looking like a large cobblestone building. After he passed away, we went to the cemetery where he was buried, and the main building of the cemetery was the one from my dreams, same layout inside and everything. Now I had never been there before, and never had another relative buried in the cemetery. I had to use the bathroom and told my parents. They said they would help me look, but I told them I knew where it was. The bathroom was right where it was in my dream. I haven't had anything like this happen since, and this was maybe 15 years ago when I was 9 or 10. Case notes file 1384. My dad and I saw a flying car. So without more details, it's kind of hard to comment on this. All I can think is something must have been on the road to have caused the energy to flip from its own kinetic energy, the car's flip. But even that doesn't really explain it, does it? I mean, no other cars affected behind it, so it couldn't be something stuck to the road. The only thing I can think of, I saw a video a while ago. Really unfortunate for the person involved, but they were on the freeway, and there's a truck on the right side of this SUV. And one of the wheels, it had two wheels I guess, it just breaks off. Or maybe it had just one wheel, I don't know. But I know the truck kept driving. But one of the wheels in the front lost its bolts, I guess, then kept rolling, and it rolled into the lane of the SUV, who rolled over it, and I guess the momentum of the angular velocity of the wheel propelled the car upwards, literally flipped over, basically kind of what you described, almost like a flip onto itself, over itself. Just from a wheel that broke off like that. I would not have expected a car could do that. But I guess it makes some sense. There's energy that's propelling it because the wheel is spinning, so it's pushing up, and then the own kinetic energy of the car lifted off the ground, propelled itself, flipped over, and what could cause a wheel to just lose out like that? It's kind of crazy. Was there some influence from some other unseen entity? I don't know. Maybe it's just bad luck, but damn. Very unfortunate. Question suivant, 1385. The Aliens of Fire. So I'm sure other people are getting this too, but there's heavy Independence Day vibes from this experience. And you know, that's something that movie got right, at least as far as we understand physics now. If a ship was capable of coming into our atmosphere at high velocity, the atmosphere around the ship would be superheated, and the ship too. Unless they have some method to remove heat almost instantly, but maybe these aliens do not, and maybe there's just no way, physically speaking, no matter how advanced you get, that heat is just spread into the atmosphere. Or maybe it's a government craft that's automated. No one inside, which would explain how the G-forces don't matter. To an extent. I mean, if you get enough G-forces, you can literally rip the craft apart. But assuming there's really strong alloys that we don't know about, yeah, maybe you could get really high G movements. So it really comes down to special alloys and automation, which we can automate drones. Why not an entire craft? I think it's possible. So maybe it wasn't aliens. Maybe it is just our own government tests. But it could be aliens too. I won't discount that. Case notes for the bonus file. Casino Rama's Dark Secret. So gambling addiction is no joke. Can leave people as down and out as any drug. Hopeless and lifeless. It sounds like you recovered though, so I'm happy about that. It's mightily impressive. As far as the rodent, well, a curious spirit possessing a rodent or perhaps causing a hallucination of it? Maybe. Can't say too much on it beyond that though. It did sound almost like it was apathetic to you, didn't really care. Maybe slightly curious. But that's it. Now time for the quote of the day. We are so accustomed to disguise ourselves to others that in the end we become disguised to ourselves. François de la Rochefoucauld. Yes, that's the ultimate mask, isn't it? The mask we wear to hide ourselves from ourselves. Maybe because we're not proud of who we are, the choices we made, a lot of guilt and regret. It adds up, and then you're just not happy with who you are. Now, the beautiful thing about being human is you can always change who you are. You can't change your past and the choices you made. But you can start to forgive yourself. But only. This only works if you actually genuinely are trying to change and don't go back to your old ways. If you forgive yourself, but you never change, well, that's a recipe for continuing the same behavior because you'll just go back to what you were doing that was bad. So if you're wearing a mask because you're not proud of who you are or the choices you made in the past, be introspective. Think about what were those things that you did wrong and why you made those choices. The why is critical. Because if you don't understand the why, you're going to make the same mistake again. You're going to choose it again without even really understanding. That's no good. Question suivant, 1386. The strange temporal episode on the San Mateo Bridge. I was curious, so I looked up the length of that bridge. I've never seen it before. And it stands at 7 miles or almost 12 kilometers long. Damn. That's a lengthy bridge indeed. But even with a bit of traffic, I can't see it taking more than 10-15 minutes to cross. It's certainly not an hour. Some kind of portal system where the vectors repeated into themselves. It's like in that Portal game, where you have a device that generates a portal wherever you aim, but you can select where the exit portal is as well. So people did all kinds of goofy things with it, including an entry portal on the floor, and an exit portal on the ceiling above. So you'd enter the entry portal, then fall out from the ceiling, from the exit portal on the ceiling, into the entry portal again, in an infinite loop. Or it's like the scene in one of the Marvel movies where Loki is stuck in the portal, where he keeps falling through himself. That's basically the same thing. Only in this case, it would be not through gravity, but just continually driving through the portal without realizing it. And these portals in real life, they're invisible. Unless they're unstable, is my guess. I think there's been a couple instances where people have seen them, but I think they just collapse. They emit light before they're going to collapse, is my guess. But if they're stable, then you don't even see them. And given the sameness of a bridge, I could believe that you could go through a portal several times without even realizing it, because the environments are basically the same. If there's not enough traffic, you wouldn't really notice anything different. You would just be, it would be so instantaneous and seamless that, yeah, I think that explains it very well. A portal where there are two portals that are intersected in vectors. So you enter one, exit behind, enter it back again, stuck in a space loop. I don't think it was relevant with time itself, just space. Of course, the question really is still the same. What the hell causes these? Is it an anomaly? Is it something that is just random? It seems too precise to be random to me, but I have no idea what could cause it. Government tests? Weird place to conduct a test. I really don't know. Case notes for the file 1387, when a mysterious photographer interrupts a drive. To me, this screams of a dare by the driver of that black SUV, urging their passenger to try and freak out whoever was driving behind them. Maybe they didn't like how close your husband was driving? Tailgating? Still, a very odd way to go about things, if that is indeed what prompted this mysterious photography session. Case notes for file 1388, the Synchronized family dinner glitch. Ah yes, the great zucchini superposition. I think the last line is a dead giveaway. More glitches lately. This indicates a failure to re-render properly from a multiverse trip. Your very code is corrupted or incomplete, which for some reason generates errors in the local environment around you. In this case, someone in your family at that dinner table had recently returned from a different universe, and their presence there destabilized the environment, including the food. So, simply enough, the youngest child received extra yellow zucchini and taters from a different version of herself in a different universe, and over there, she didn't even have to finish the first serving. So just fish all night. Not bad. Salmon's pretty good. And now time for the quote of the day. The argument from intimidation is a confession of intellectual impotence. Ayn Rand. I think this definitely applies, but I think it can expand it a bit to go that the problem is people aren't coming to discussions and debates as individuals most of the time. They're coming as part of a team, a tribe, as we spoke a few days ago, where the whole idea is to fit in with your tribe. You select a tribe, a team, Democrat, Republican, whatever it may be. Could be a sports team too, or whatever the topic. There's usually groups and teams involved. The issues themselves largely don't matter. It's just about rhetoric. And is your rhetoric better? Your team's rhetoric better than the other teams? But you're not going to get anywhere productive if that's how you approach things. I mean, you can belong to a team. I think we all want to some extent, but you have to approach these discussions as an individual trying to expand their own knowledge. It's so difficult though. And if you don't do that, honestly, you'll just use any rhetoric device that you can, including intimidation or insults or petty bickering, high school behavior, bullying even. It is unfortunate, but it's not easy to correct. And I mean, I don't have all the answers. I don't know how to calm things down. And I mean, it's been especially bad since 2016. And you can notice this, I think, with how many debates you can find online. The amount of good, wholesome debates where people are willing to just agree to disagree, even though the issues are hot and important. Very hard to find these days. I think we'll know things are getting back to normal when there's more debates about. And people are respectful, relatively respectful. Obviously, emotions can get heated, but they can keep themselves relatively friendly. If you can get to that point again, then I think there's potential. But right now, it's kind of a mess. Case notes for file 1389. Why does my dad sit alone every night in his car? I wonder if your father was using the car as his man cave of sorts. How your mom or sister never noticed, that's hard to say. Maybe your mom didn't want it to seem like their marriage was shaky, or that your dad needed space. but it wouldn't explain why your sister never noticed. If it's a doppelganger, maybe seeing a father from a different universe, but the question would still be the same, even if it's happening in a different universe. Why is he doing that? Just a classic mystery of the human condition. Question sur file 1390. The Intruder's Riddle. Of all the violent human gangs around, or supernatural monsters or glitches, nothing makes me more unsettled than a home invasion or break-in, or even if it's a glitch, anything affecting you in your home, where you're supposed to, it's supposed to be your own little castle. Without your permission, something happening is very violating. Especially when you can't even imagine how the break-in or glitch happened. You can't feel safe again, or at least it would take a long time to. I don't envy this experience, whatever the cause. Question sur file 1391. The Sinister Swings. So this is a shared spidey sense, you could say, and there's been a few accounts of this where people are close together and they get the same sense of dread and fear and like, oh crap, we have to leave really quickly. There was some kind of entity in that area, no doubt about that. Even the sense of the air going cold or feeling wrong. It's a feeling induced by your own subconscious to get you to pay attention and not ignore the warning. Kind of like pain is our own signal to not ignore something wrong with the body. Well, there's something in the local environment. The body, the mind is going to definitely let you know. So listen to it. Don't ignore it. Question sur file 1392. From the dance floor to the crash site. Indeed, this strikes me as an erratic escape attempt, or maybe a rapid delivery of some kind of item or substance that they weren't meant to be found with. Organized crime, maybe? It is very weird, but I don't know if there's anything supernatural involved. Maybe with the girl that answered the door. And now time for the quote of the day. I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. Albert Einstein. Well, if you define ourselves as purely stats that are independent from anything we've invented, then yeah, we're definitely getting dumber. Try doing math without a calculator or a computer. Maybe you can do a bit, but it's not going to be as efficient, that's for sure, and certainly not as efficient as people were in 1940. I think as long as the technology is used with some wisdom, and that's the key, then we can do great things with it. AI now is reaching a point where it can do so many incredible things. But I think it's important not to let AI be used as a main course. It's kind of like in cooking. Right now, we have AI, and we can use it to produce extremely delicious spices, herbs, and things that can enhance or maybe help with the preparation of meat and stuff. But it shouldn't be the core focus. It should enhance our ability to create and to prosper. But it can't be in of itself the end goal. Because if it is, then yeah, I do envision a future, say like WALL-E, where we're just in a chair. We're being fed and taken care of by our robot creations that are powered by AI, and we don't have to do anything ourselves. And that sounds good on paper, but it destroys and melts the soul. It's not what we actually want. Kind of like the old adage of, be careful what you wish for, because there's definitely unintended consequences. Question sur file 1393. The night aliens invaded our Hawaiian retreat. So as exciting as aliens are, these days I'm more and more inclined to think that UFOs that we see are government experiments. I think aliens wouldn't ever be seen unless they wanted to be. That said, maybe this tech is reverse engineered from crashed alien aircraft. I think those pieces kind of fit well enough into reality. Could also be Project Bluebeam stuff where the government is faking alien aircraft, UFOs, meant to be seen or thought of as alien aircraft, but they're not real. They're just holographic projections, maybe drone swarms or something. If it is a real aircraft or a ship, that can't quite explain how this technology violates current laws of physics, though. Even if we built it ourselves, even if no aliens are involved at all, 100% on us, how can any aircraft travel faster than the speed of sound, and then there be no sonic boom? That's the current mystery surrounding UFOs, and also the instantaneous acceleration. Not even if it's human or alien tech, but just how the technology itself can be so foreign and alien to us. If it is real, that's the only concerning thing. If it's just a trickery made to look like an alien aircraft, or just an experimental craft, but it's not, that would suck. But if it's real, then just knowing that you can violate the known laws of physics, which just means that we don't understand them fully, is quite exciting to me. Questions for the bonus file. The Black Mass that haunted our road. Visual echoes from other dimensions. Light can be emitted without anything being there that we can interact with directly, or rather in this case, the absence of light. This isn't even hard to fit into our currently known physics, with dark matter being this nebulous mass that has no interaction with physical matter or energy in this dimension. The only thing we know about it is that it has gravity. It has an effect on space-time itself, but that's it. Nothing else, apparently. So whatever you saw almost certainly exists, but nowhere that we have access to. So it wasn't a threat, it's just an anomaly in why you saw it. Now time for the quote of the day. To me, a lush carpet of pine needles or spongy grass is more welcome than the most luxurious Persian rug. Helen Keller. I'm actually wondering, did you guys go camping much during your childhood and teenage years? I did go quite a few times with my dad, and I think once with my grandparents, though not often. And it doesn't necessarily have to be camping. It could just be having a cabin in the woods and a lot of privacy and, of course, a backyard, extensive backyard, where there's trees and the cricket sounds and the smell of wood burning with your little fire pit. You don't have to be out in the wilderness, I guess, for that. But yeah, just laying on the ground on a cool evening night, it's precious. Now, is that more luxurious than the Persian rug? I don't know. I can see value in both, but I really understand where this quote is coming from. A return to nature, in many ways, would be good. Or at least a vacation into it. Case note so far, 1394. The night I defied death on Sunset Boulevard. It's been a hot minute since I narrated a quantum immortality story, but to me they never get old. It signals a logical and physical way how life can persist even through the standard mortal coil that we all experience daily. So here we have the complete package. Not just seamless quantum immortality, which is more common, but the version where you're temporarily stuck in a limbo universe with no other souls, a dead copy, until full transfer is finished to your new vessel in a real universe. Most people never perceive this limbo area. The limbo area would be extremely distressing though, if perceived, especially if you don't know about glitches. You've never heard of this happening to anyone, so yeah, being stuck where there's no other humans around randomly is not normal for most people. Case note so far, 1395. When Josh defied time and space. Teleportation events are spooky because of how flawless the transitions usually are. One plank length, you're at X coordinates, and the next plank length, you're at Y. There's no airburst, no sonic boom, no heat displacement from the air moving out of the way at such high speeds it turns into plasma. Because of course if you're teleporting in one spot there's no atmosphere at all, because you just vanished, all your mass is gone, and then in the new area, you have to move all that air out of the way. It's not a void, you're in the atmosphere. So there's nothing like that at all, which is strange, right? It's like the universe itself opens a void prior to accepting the teleportation, and it all happens so fast, no one has a perception of it. Maybe you disappear in one spot, there's a void, and then the universe takes the air that would be in the area you're going to be ported to, and this is all with like time frozen, and it just moves that air into the area where you were before, the void you created by disappearing, and it all happens instantaneously. So there's no airburst, there's no noise. A couple times, there were a couple stories where there were. So I don't know, maybe teleportations or returning items and stuff, it's not all the same thing. There's different ways it can happen. Because there's different contextual clues that tell us, yeah, sometimes there is an airburst, there is a sonic boom, because the air has to move out of the way. And sometimes, most of the time, there isn't. So I guess there's a higher level controller going on in the majority of the cases. But to me, this doesn't strike me as an ability that someone has. Case on so far, 1396. The Cemetary, 15 years later. I wonder what sounds like a mausoleum, when was it constructed? Was it happening 15 years ago, while you were having the dream? It's unlikely your uncle actually built it, but my guess would be you were dreaming about your uncle's final resting place being built, and your subconscious merely interpreted it as your uncle building it himself. I'm not sure why your subconscious would do that, but it seems like the most logical explanation. Now time for the quote of the day. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Mahatma Gandhi. It takes a lot of strength to forgive, but there's only one caveat I want to include to this, is that forgiveness, there's one thing that has to precede forgiving someone. You have to know that they're willing to truly change, not just saying, I'm sorry, but look at their actions. Like they say, actions speak louder than words. Are their actions reflecting an actual desire to change? If they harmed you in some way, but they intend truly never to do it again, it was a mistake, a weakness of character, okay, you can forgive them. One time. I don't think you should forgive someone twice. I think once, some people deserve a second chance if they show that they're really gonna honor that second chance, but otherwise don't. So forgiveness is a sign of strength if you do it wisely. It can be a sign of naivete if you forgive someone over and over or forgive someone with no evidence that they're going to change. That I would say is not wise. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.